Hey everyone, Kyle here. If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. Let me explain a little bit. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcast, and so much more. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. So download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's ANCHOR.fm. They'll have everything you need all in one place. I can speak from my experience. It's been awesome so far and super easy. So go check it out, guys, and we'll see you later. Everyone, welcome. This is Our Travel Experiences. I'm Kyle Rasmussen, and today I have with me my friend Jamal. Jamal, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, sir. How about yourself?
Doing well, doing well. I'm excited to talk about your experiences. I know you moved all the way across the country here,
I
um,
did. I
and
did.
so interested to get your take on travels and just hear a little bit about your experiences.
For sure, I'm here for it. I feel like, traveling should be a cornerstone of everyone's life. Like we're put on this world. And it would just suck to like just stay in one place. So if you don't travel, go out there now, book a ticket.
Yeah, totally agree with that. So before we jumped on here, we were talking. You just got back from Boston, correct?
I did. I got back from my hometown not too long ago, about a week ago.
Okay, cool. How was it being back home?
It's good. I've been back home a few times. But I come from humble beginnings, and every time I go back, it always inspires me to go harder, and go further in my job. I came from not necessarily the best place in Boston. I came from Dorchester, Massachusetts. Shout out to Mark Wahlberg and the boys. That's where they're from. But it's one of those things where every time I go back, there's always something new that's developing in my hometown. But at the same time, it's also humbling to see like where I've came from and what has started from when I left. And that just makes me go harder because I do want to move back home eventually. But the market, as you guys know, is so crazy in the East that you obviously got to make some
Mhm.
money out here in the West to move back.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So how long have you been out here on the West Coast?
Oh man, it's been this year would be 7 years
Oh
in
wow.
June. Yeah, it's crazy. And it's been a tough transition. It's just definitely coming from the East Coast to the West Coast. Just a lot of interpersonal things. The PNW could be it's a little different than the East Coast for sure. But I'm very grateful because a lot of my friends are definitely they I won't say they're stuck, but they definitely have stayed back home. And every time I go back, you know they've seen a lot of growth in me. And that's because I was able to like pack up two suitcases, move out here, and just learn how to become a man on my own too. I mean, no disrespect to my friends or whatnot, but moving out here to the West, 3,000 miles away from home, has made me much of a better person than I was prior.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I know for me, I mean, I didn't move that far away, but I moved 1,000 miles away from home for a
Mhm.
while. I felt like I grew a lot during that time as well. Um, so I'm curious, what kind of things in these last 7 years have you found moving far away? Where do you think you've grown the most, or where have you seen growth in your own life?
Yeah, I mean, there's a quote out there that you find yourself where you understand life more when you have either a broken heart, broken pockets, or no food. And like not to touch upon my
I
life
like
like
that.
that, but but like those are some similar themes that been through in my 7 years. And I learned a lot about myself. I learned that I could overcome mostly anything. I was at one point I was at the end of trying to moving back. Like I thought I had to move back home at one point, but I worked very hard. I overcame a lot of fears. Overcame a lot of obstacles. Here I am, probably 2021 is probably one of the best lives I had ever, years I have ever. And it's all attributed to like just learning and overcoming those obstacles.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of added challenges being so far away from, all the people family, that sort of thing.
It is, like my mom and my dad, they're very supportive. I mean, my mom more or less, she taught me everything I know, from life to business. And I made it a point to myself where I'm not gonna call on her, because that's why I mean, obviously that's what I
Mhm.
did prior to moving. When I ever needed something, even for her to make a dentist appointment for me, she's the one who did it. But I
Same.
made it a it's a theme for all of us, for all our millennials. But I mean, I would say, just coming out here, I made it a point not to call up my mom. Like, again, like
Mhm.
prior for me moving out here, she was my A1 in terms of like where I went for dentist appointments and stuff like that. So I made it a point for myself to learn, what does it mean to pay a premium? What does it mean for, you know, contributing money to HSA, different things of that nature. And that kind of that propelled me to be a little bit ahead of my peers, because a lot of people didn't know about the different tiers of health insurance, stuff like that. But I mean, at the end of the day, me being out here in the West Coast for 7 years by myself has made me an adult, earlier than most people that I know. And I'm very grateful for that. But it wasn't easy. I've definitely touched the fire. I've definitely been burned. But I'm very grateful for everything I've been through.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. Do you think because of your moving out here that you become a better person?
Most definitely, man. Like even when it's from me first moving out here, it enabled me to travel solo by myself. Just being out here by myself. Um, and it just allowed me to just go forth and like speak up, step up. Make
Mhm.
new friends, do things I would get out my comfort zone. That's the only way for success. Anyone from the top is going to tell you the only way you're going to get to the next level is get out of your comfort zone. And me
For
moving
sure.
3,000 miles away has got me out my comfort zone down to a T. And there's still room for growth. I do definitely
Mhm.
keep a small circle. I am a homebody, but at the end of the day, I've, I, I look back to my old pictures at me, Boston, a young Jamal, and I'm like, man, oh man, if only you knew the person you become. And I'm proud of the person I
Right.
become, because I always wanted to be me growing up.
Yeah. That's so awesome to hear. What do you
Yeah.
think has been, uh, I guess, the hardest part of moving out here, and what's been kind of the best part of moving out here?
Ah, man. I mean, I'd say the hardest part about moving out here was definitely getting a handle on things. Like, when you're moving from your parents' house, like it seems like they made it so easy. I was just thinking this to myself, like good parents made things so easy.
Hmm.
Like you're on their health insurance. Their kitchen's fully stocked all the time. They have this, they have that, they have every
Yeah.
utensil in the kitchen, cable. Like my mom made it look so easy, but until I stepped into being an adult, I'm like, how does she do this?
Yeah.
And like that was the hardest part, because nothing happens overnight, and you want things to happen overnight. So like literally, my apartment changed drastically over months, and even though I felt like I should have all the stuff that my mom has, it took time. Whether it's
Mhm.
like having like a knife set to like having a good coffee table. So like I would say the hardest thing was just like getting a handle on things, and making sure that just becoming an adult, making sure everything's in the right order. And what was the second question, the follow-up question?
Yeah, just what's been the best part of moving out here?
The best part about moving out here is definitely my own type of I'm able to write my own legacy. I'm able to write my own chapter in life. I'm able to, like, even if it comes down to the things I eat, like I'm able to do everything myself. Like when growing up, when you're kind of under your parents' wing, you're under their legacy. You're kind of under, like, whatever they do, that's you. And you kind
Mhm.
of feel stuck. You kind of feel like, oh man, like I'll be like this forever. But when you move out to yourself, you kind of write your own legacy. You can do whatever you want to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
I've learned that. That's the biggest thing I've learned. If you want to become a millionaire, you definitely can. It takes work. You're gonna have to like study
Yep.
things a lot, but you can move, you can be wherever, you can do whatever you want. It just takes work. It just takes a lot
Mhm.
of dedication. But no matter what you want in this world and in America, it's yours. And I've learned that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think essentially what you're saying is, by going out on your own, you kind of find yourself and figure it
Yes,
out for yourself, and you just kind of see who you're going to become, so to speak.
that's very true. And to add to that, just increasing my network.
Hmm.
Like I went to school for computer science, and my first job out of college was project management at Microsoft, and I didn't like project management. I was not a big project manager fan. But I was able to, increase my network and try various roles. I was really good at a lot of them. Now to the point where I landed something that I always wanted to do growing up: digital marketing, and
Hmm.
specifically business to business digital marketing. That was always something I wanted to do in college, because I took a marketing class, and I always thought to myself, like, how can I get into this, make it my career? And it took
Yeah.
years. It took a lot of trial and error, but I'm safe to say I'm doing what I've always wanted to do. It's crazy.
Hmm. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Where do you think, the next couple of years will take you in terms of location of
Yeah.
sort of thing?
I'm very optimistic that I can move somewhere where there's sun. I specifically Phoenix, Arizona, Tempe, Arizona. I've traveled there for my birthday,
Hmm.
and I went with my girlfriend, and her and I just fell in love with the area. I mean, we've heard great things about it prior to visiting. I've heard great a crazy amount of good things about that whole area. But after going and then seeing it how it is, people are so nice. The weather's always hot every day. It's just one of those places where I gotta go. So I'm hoping in the next 2 years everything goes well, that I am take my butt down there.
Yeah, very cool. What do you like about the trip to Phoenix so much?
That's a good question. I mean, weather wise, for sure, that was one of the huge components. But the way how the city's ran, the way how the people are, like the city's just so clean. The parks are just so nice. There's like there's dedicated park workers. Like here in Seattle, no shame in Seattle, but you don't necessarily see people going around in the parks cleaning. You don't necessarily see
Yeah.
people in the parks driving around. Just making sure that your parks and recs are looking great. And everyone has a smile on their face. Definitely could be attributed to the weather. But I just love the way how clean the city is and how nice everyone was. Like everyone I've met was definitely a transplant to Phoenix, but everyone had a smile on their face and everyone was very helpful towards my girlfriend and I, even when we went shopping.
Yeah, yeah, that's so cool to hear. I think Phoenix right now is one of the top places for people to move to. I think it's for a lot of the reasons that you just mentioned.
Hmm.
Everyone's happy. The weather's nice.
Hmm.
I know it's winter time right now in the Pacific Northwest, and for me personally, it's not my favorite time of the year. I don't really enjoy school. Nice off the windshield in the mornings and freezing. Um, Phoenix sounds really nice right now for me too. But no, that's so cool. I think you know being able to go explore a place like that and kind of test it out, so to speak. You get to see a little bit of the culture, a little bit of like, hey, this is the kind of thing I would like. I like the weather, like
Right,
I like how the city is run. Like this is a place I could see myself. Uh,
right.
cool
And
thing about
sorry to cut you off, but to add to that, why I'm very grateful of moving out is because I was able to touch different cities. I was able to
it.
travel around the country to understand what I like, what I don't like. Like I went to Chicago, I thought I wanted to move there. I went to Houston, I thought I wanted to move there. I went to Cleveland, like all of these places. I was able to combine
Yeah.
my pros and cons, because like going back to what I said, you could do whatever you want. I
Mhm.
attribute that to myself. I'm literally gonna move wherever I want, depending, with remote work and whatnot. But after touching Phoenix, I'm like, nope, this is the top of the list. This is where I want to move. And I know a lot of people in my circle who hasn't necessarily branched out, or had the care to travel across the country, or go different places in the
Mhm.
country. So I'm very grateful for moving out here, because I was able to take that travel bug and go to so many places. So now I can see where I want to retire. I can see where I want to
Yeah.
set up shop. Different things of that nature.
Yeah, for sure. I'm the same way. I think we're really similar in our travels. Like,
Right.
um, I love going to a place like Phoenix and just kind of experiencing it and saying, hey, is this a place I want to be in? And it's
Right.
possible. Um, so that's really cool. And I think going back to you said your friends in Boston who might not have branched out. Um, they probably haven't got to see much outside of Boston, and so that's all they know. And so you kind of get that one culture, that one vibe,
Yep.
possibly, and you don't really get to see what else is out there,
Yep.
unfortunately.
Not. Yeah, it's very unfortunate. And the crazy thing about it, I'm so Boston, man. Like when anyone asks me like where you're from, or what more about you, I'm like, I live in Seattle, but I'm from Boston. And that's just, everyone has that pride. You go to Boston, everyone has the pride of 617. That's our area code, by the way.
Mhm.
But it's just like, it's one of those things where I've learned Boston's not the only thing. Like ever since even when I
Yeah.
moved out to Seattle, I'm like, man, I gotta move back. I'm only gonna be here for a couple of years. I gotta move back. But
Mhm.
I've slowly drifted away from that thought. I slowly, drifted away of visiting Boston like 2, 3 times a year. I slowly drifted away of, thinking like I'm gonna drink a Sam Adams every time. Like, like
Yeah.
I've slowly changed my mindset a lot. I still have the backbone of Boston for sure, but my mindset has changed and shifted like the complete 180, and I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know you talked about there's some big differences between Boston and Seattle.
Hmm.
What were some of those major differences that you saw?
Most definitely. I mean, Seattle's definitely a white collar city, in my opinion. Boston is definitely blue collar. Like everyone I know, the people I grew up with, and even people I've met, super blue collar. It's the gritty nitty down in Boston, and that's why where everyone has very pride of Boston because they're down in the trenches, they're down working, they're down
Yeah.
grinding. And I started working when I was 14. I was part of that culture.
Wow.
And it's one of those things where like when you're part of that grind culture, when you wake up early, it may seem like it's a lot. It may seem like, man, I don't want to do that, but you take pride in what you do, and you take
Hmm.
pride of the things that you earn, and that you accrue. And I've definitely taken that approach here in Seattle. But it's different because with the white collar, it's more or less okay. You work on your computer, you do what you do for a couple hours, and then you shut your computer down and you're done. You enjoy like more of the finer things in life, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
But taking a different approach with the blue collar and the white collar city, it makes me different. It makes me stand out because a lot of people think you're not from here or you're not necessarily with the same mindset as most people, if that makes sense. Um, so
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy. Boston, like East Coast in general, has that grind mentality. Whereas Seattle, I feel like it's just so much money here due to tech. It's kind of like a layup
Hmm.
in a way that you're gonna get money. Obviously, you got to put some wood behind the arrow, but the mindset's completely different.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, now that you mentioned that, during my travels to the East Coast, and then obviously being from the West Coast, I
Yeah,
definitely a totally different vibe between the
yeah.
two. Obviously it's a lot more populated on the East Coast, especially in
Mhm.
places like Boston and New York.
Mhm.
Um, and I totally get what you're saying that blue collar versus white collar, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah,
Um,
it's completely like it's night and day. But then when you add that, it's like a yin and a yang. But when you come towards the middle, when you formulate that special, when you hone that special attributes from both, you can take over the world, in my opinion. And that's what I'm just looking to
yeah,
do.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, I think it's probably good to have the best of both worlds and get both sides of the coin, so to speak.
Right, right. And one more thing to add, like Boston, I wouldn't say they're in your face, but the East Coast is very upfront. The East Coast is,
Hmm.
like I said, that
Yeah,
grind culture, like it's just very like you just got to be there. It's a
yeah.
different, it's good energy, great energy. It's not for everybody, to be honest with you, but if you've embedded that as you grow and see it, it's you can't help but say I'm proud to be from that place, no matter how bad it
Hmm.
is or how good it is, whatever case may be.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, with the whole in your face thing, I definitely noticed that too. On the West Coast, like I always relate it like when you're ordering a coffee or something. Like on the West Coast, you're very like people are very laid back, like,
Yeah.
oh, take my time and order and blah blah blah. On the East Coast, like you better get up and know what you're ordering, otherwise you're out of
You're gonna
line.
get cussed out. Yep.
Yeah,
You got to parallel park in 3 seconds as well. If you
yeah.
don't parallel park in 3 seconds, oh man, you're getting all types of horns beeped at you, man.
Yeah, I can't imagine driving a car over there and parking all the time and all its small spots and everything. It's got to be a nightmare.
You gotta be a fighter. You gotta be a fighter on the road, and that's what Boston has taught anybody from there. You gotta be a fighter. You like, just an analogy. When you're driving to get anywhere, you gotta stick your nose out, right? You got to
Hmm.
be aggressive, and that's all Boston is. Not even just in the road, but in the streets, at work, like with your conversation with your friends. You got to be aggressive. You can't let anyone think you're a doormat, and not necessarily saying that's a bad thing. It's just that's just what it is, and
Yeah.
that's what makes the people in Boston. They're very strong. They're very hardened. I kid to my girlfriend a lot that is it I'm mean or are you too sensitive when I say certain things. And it's just a joke, by the way. But it's that's what I'm just saying. Like Boston's just very abrasive, but it's a good abrasive. Like no one thinks otherwise. If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Sure. So, I got a couple questions here for you. So with
Yeah.
Boston, for people that are visiting, what would you recommend they do? If they had, a couple days or maybe a week or something, what do you recommend for people going to Boston?
Mm, that's a good question, man. I mean, foodie. If you're definitely a foodie, you definitely want to go to the Quincy Market for sure, and Faneuil Hall. You definitely want to check out some eats down in Newbury Street and Boylston Street as well. Um, they just revamped the mall, the Prudential Mall, so there's a Italy there now. So if you want to take a trip or a quote unquote trip to Italy, definitely hop down to the Prudential Mall, check out Italy for sure. Um, but if you want to try different diverse foods, like a lot of Asian Pacific foods, like you definitely go to like Dorchester Ave. There's some of the best authentic Asian foods you can find. Even if in Dorchester, if you go, I'm from Barbados, so that's more the Caribbean. If you want to have a Caribbean approach, definitely check out Dorchester as well too. Get out your comfort zone. Check some of those places out. But if you want more like the neutral, the just the generic kind of like clam chowder stuff like that, definitely want to check out Seaport and Quincy Market.
Hmm. Well, I feel like you got to get at least clam chowder at least once while you're there.
Nah, you definitely do. You definitely do. And lobster as
Lobster roll
well.
too.
Yeah, you definitely do. Seaport would be your best friend for all that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. What about sites to see? I know there's a ton of sites to see, but what would be like the one or two that you'd recommend the most?
Man, Boston has changed so much, but I would say one of the upcoming areas to definitely check out is East Boston. Shout out to my people in East Boston. I am from Dorchester originally, but I went to East Boston High, and they took me in, and I've seen that city go from like 0 to 100 over like a span of 10 years. And it's going back to the food question as well. It has one of the best authentic Latin and Hispanic food. But just East Boston, you can see outside of the city. You can see the skyline because it's near the
Mhm.
airport, so you're kind of seeing over the water. All you gotta do is
Mhm.
take the blue line to Maverick, get off of Maverick, walk, I think, south towards Maverick Station. You can see all of the Boston skyline for sure. And even with that, there's so many different breweries and so many different new restaurants that are in Boston. That's definitely a sight to see. Um, and more or less, you Boston Common. It's more like
Mhm.
Boston's Central Park, sort of say. It has the Freedom
Yeah.
Trail, and that's right off of Park Street on the Red Line. So definitely check out those two for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's one of the things I was bummed when I was there. I didn't get to go like outside of the city.
Hmm.
Um, didn't have enough time for that. But yeah, from the one vantage point I did have, the Boston skyline looks really beautiful.
It's
Um,
amazing, man. It's amazing.
yeah. So next time I'm there, I definitely have to go to East Boston and check that out. But yeah, Boston Commons. I mean, that's a pretty awesome place. Like you said, kind of like Central Park, but
Yeah,
Boston version.
yeah.
Isn't it like one of the oldest parks in America? Is that right?
I believe so. I believe so. There's so much history there, and like as you touch
Yeah.
down in Boston, you can soak it up.
Mhm.
Even when you go downtown, you like that's been one of the things when I grew up that inspired me to be the best I can be. It's just by even looking at the history. Like, man, there's so much history in the city. Like, I want to be part of the history. Like, I want to have
Mhm.
my own statue. Like, it's funny. There's a lot of like musician and artists that comes from Boston, and they make sure that they claim Boston because you want to be part of that legacy. It's our
Yeah.
pride. So yeah, there's a lot of history in Boston Commons or in Boston in general.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, so much history. That's one of the the first places that people were in America.
Hmm.
So much has happened in that area. And I like that. You kind of I mean, you feel connected to it, don't you?
I do, man. Like it's one of those things where it's just like, oh man, you're gonna make me cry. I'm so passionate about my city. It's just one of those things. Like it just makes you again, going back to like what I was saying about that grind, going back to where
Mhm.
you feel like you want to be part of the culture and the legacy. Like you do feel connected, man. You feel inspired, especially when you come from outside of the city, like Dorchester, Roxbury, Mattapan, those places, and you troop yourself to the city. Like you want to be a part of that, and even Cambridge as well. Harvard, you walk around Harvard campus, and you're like, man, this is crazy. Like, I
Yeah.
want to be a part of that. I want my name to ring bells around these areas, around these parts. And it just makes you go harder and hard. And that's why, what I said way back in this conversation, like every time I go, I feel humbled and I feel like I want to work harder and towards something
Mhm.
again that eventually maybe I can retire back in Boston, but just from a different perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so cool to hear. I mean, it's that's just one of the cool things about hearing about other places is
Yeah.
you get to experience something that might be totally different from what you're used to.
Yeah.
Um,
The perspective has,
yeah, yeah. Okay, so the second part of that question was um, for people that are moving to Boston, what kind of recommendations would you have for someone like that?
most definitely. I mean, you know, Boston has changed and the East Coast, the market, the housing market is crazy, man. Like,
Yeah.
I would say start small. Don't be afraid. You don't necessarily have to be in Boston proper. There's different neighborhoods such as Dorchester, where I grew up, that has changed and developed over time. That's accommodating everybody. Start small. You can definitely move to areas like Dorchester, South Boston, JP, um, Mattapan, if you have you, that's another upcoming area that's probably going to develop in the next couple of years. But it's good to get ahead right now.
Hmm.
Um, East Boston for sure. East Boston probably has hit its pinnacle, but you might be able to get something for a low cost. It depends on where you're at in life, but I would say definitely start small. You could definitely start in those different neighborhoods because the great thing about Boston, if you don't know, is the transit system. No matter where you are in Boston, you can literally hop on a train or a bus and get you where you want to get to in a matter of minutes. I've had friends that
Hmm.
we all grew up in different neighborhoods. Again, I'm from Dorchester. I have friends that more or less grew up in East Boston. I went to East Boston High. I'm in East Boston in less than 30 minutes on a good day. On a bad day, more about an hour. And yes, it does seem far. It's across the city. It's across the whole city. But the transit system is good at times where it can get you where you want to get to, no matter where you're at.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. That's one thing that I noticed when I was there was the subway system was awesome.
Yeah.
Uh,
It yeah.
Especially like having been to New York City as well. I thought Boston's subway was a way better than New York's.
You can say it's like a mini MTA because it's funny because our transit system is called MBTA and I believe New
Hmm.
York's is MTA. So it's like a mini New York substation. But again, like all the different neighborhoods are connected through that transit system. I think it's actually the oldest transit system, and there's
Oh,
always
really?
something going on with that transit system.
I'm sure they're always doing renovations or something.
Yup, they can never fix it though. That's the funny part. They can never fix it.
Yeah, you fix one part and another one breaks
It
down.
never breaks. It seems like the whole thing is broken, and they're just putting band-aids on it.
Yeah, that's funny. But yeah, no, when I was there, I mean, I really thought for the most part it was pretty easy to get wherever you wanted to go.
Yeah, like I haven't had a car until I was like 21, 22, and I was literally just going around by the train. My mom didn't have a car. My mom migrated to America when she was like 17-ish. And she
Oh
didn't have a
wow.
car until like I was like, or until my sister actually was born. And my sister was born in 2002. I think my mom came to America in like 1980. So like, so imagine that she went that whole span without having a car. But she got to where she got to though. She got to work when she got to. She got to
Hmm.
the grocery store when she needed to. She did her shopping. So it's again going back to like starting like where you want to move in Boston. Definitely start small. Don't be afraid to branch out to those different neighborhoods. You don't have to be in the hot spots of Boston because it's expensive as one. All depends on
Yeah.
where you're at in life. but you can definitely have some fun in like the smaller neighborhoods and meet up in downtown proper.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think that's a great idea for anyone, moving to really any city too. Is just,
Yeah,
you know, don't you don't necessarily have to be in the middle of things
right,
when you move to a new place. I mean, even in like Seattle, for example,
right.
you can still get around fairly easily to where you want to go. Um, maybe it's not as great as Boston. I'm not really familiar with the whole Seattle transit system, but
Mm-hmm.
again, you can be outside of a city and still get into the city pretty easily in a lot of
For
cases.
For sure. I mean, like, Seattle's revamping their whole transit system, which is great. Like now, people have access to more North Seattle. So that's a huge asset that they've built on a transit line. And
Mhm.
apparently they're gonna start building out to like, the east side, like Bellevue, and I believe also that's gonna come with Issaquah and whatnot based on the transit line. So I'm excited to see all of that for sure. I just wish that was there already because
Mhm.
like how do you not have that with this all the tech out here? Um,
Yeah.
but it's uncomparable to Boston, man. Like Boston, even though it sometimes it feels like shit, I took that for granted compared to
Yeah.
like here.
Yeah. Yeah. So the flip side of those questions, what kind of advice, recommendations would you have for someone visiting Seattle and moving
Right.
out of Seattle?
That's a really good question, man. I mean, when I was first moving out to Seattle, I wanted to be in the mix.
Hmm.
I always wanted to be in a poppin' area because I was never in that. I always had to take either the train home or bum a ride or somehow somebody get a taxi. This was way before Uber, and they didn't like going to my neighborhood at the time. So it was kind of daunting. So I'm like, man, when I move, I want to move where I can walk to the club, I can walk to the bar,
Yeah.
drunk if I am. Um, but nowadays, I would say like it's all about what you like. Nowadays, I would say like if you're in your early 20s, for sure, Capitol Hill is the place to be. I would say that it has a lively nightlife. There's a lot of good eats around. But there's a lot of college. There's a college, Seattle University, and there's a lot of people around in that age. If you're more in
Mhm.
your grown person vibe, your late 20s, early 30s, I'd argue Ballard is probably one of the best places to live. It's kind of away from downtown Seattle and Cap Hill. I mean, you definitely have to take like an Uber, which is like 20-25 minutes. But it has its own mini kind of style where it fits that bill of your grown person vibe.
Yeah.
Good dive bars, good high end restaurants, good high end local restaurants, I should say, and some good boutique shops around.
Yeah. Yeah. Very nice. Yeah. And then what about people just visiting for a couple days?
For sure, just visiting. I would definitely say you definitely want to check out the waterfront. You definitely want to,
Mhm.
if wherever you are, make it a thing to definitely check out the waterfront. This is in the summertime. Do not come here
Yeah.
if it's not June, July, or August.
Summer's a lot nicer than that.
No, but for sure.
I'd probably say that for Boston too, right?
I mean, so the funny thing is, man, like you can have fun in the wintertime in Boston. Fall is probably one of the better seasons in
Yeah.
Boston. But even like if it's a mild, cold day, like not when it's like -20, you can have fun because there's Frog Pond. So it's like literally like there's a pond in Boston Commons that gets when it's frozen, you can ice skate. There's a
Mm.
lot of yeah, there's a lot of activities that enables you to have fun when it's the wintertime. And that's the one difference that Boston has over Seattle because in Seattle, it's so gray and so dark. The only thing that you can do is either go to a dive bar, get drunk, or you come home, or just stay home. Um,
Hmm.
but from Boston, there's so many different outdoor activities that you can do in terms of like there's like something called a winter wonderland. I think that's built on a blue line now. I think around Bowdoin. And then there's also Frog Pond. There's a lot of different ponds that are frozen over that you can ice skate. You can obviously have a snowball fight. Um, but it just gives that the snow gives Boston a luxurious kind of sight, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. It's versus Seattle when it snows in Seattle, it doesn't necessarily give. It's not the same.
Yeah.
Boston looks beautiful when it's snowy compared to Seattle, which is very interesting.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know they're in Seattle. They're not really used to a lot of snow.
Yeah, that
Um,
too.
I think a lot of the culture and the vibe and some of the scenery and whatnot is based around the rain.
Yeah,
Um, because it does rain a lot there, and so you see a lot more like of the trees. You see a lot more of the kind of forest vibe. I think about the grunge music. So much of the greatest grunge music, the kind of genre
right,
was started here, and it was because people were kind of depressed with because they never saw the sun.
right.
So you get some of those unique cultural aspects based on the weather and that sort of thing.
Right. And I appreciate that. That's I'm very appreciative of like the rain in terms of like, if I do find a nice concert or a bar, because there's times where pre-COVID, when I used to go to the office, we'll stumble into a bar on a random Tuesday, Wednesday night and have one of the best nights of my life. Or, there's been like a little like mini concert in a way, like there's like local shows. And like it's
Yeah.
like, dude, how are you not signed? Kind of stuff, or so like I definitely appreciate the fact that when it is raining, you can definitely go to your local bar and it feels very cozy. People will talk
Mhm.
to you and converse with you. But that was all pre-COVID. Times has changed, unfortunately. So I don't think Seattle is back to that. Okay, I can stumble into a local dive bar and see some great talent or some art or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So versus Boston, no one necessarily does that in Boston. People are more or less outside in the wintertime. But here in Seattle, it's very different that people can definitely go to their local bar and just have fun on a random night.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, kind of getting back to the touristy things. Um, I'm guessing you would probably agree with this, but going to see, Pike's Place Market, Space Needle, all those sorts of things,
For
probably
sure.
the top ones to go to.
Most definitely. I mean, they're definitely touristy.
Yeah, yeah,
But
for sure.
it's definitely a sight to see. When I first moved out here, I didn't necessarily check those out the first time around. But if you are a visitor, definitely check out the gum wall. Definitely check out the Space Needle. Definitely check out. Be careful because it's covered probably around the gum wall. Who knows?
Yeah, don't touch the gum wall. Just look at it.
but and the Seattle Cirque wheel. So
Oh
that,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, Ferris wheel. So those are some great things to look at. I'm more of a neighborhood vibe person, so I would definitely either troop it out to definitely like Cap Hill. I've told a lot of people this who has met me in a bar and they're visiting. I'm like, hey man, nah, definitely check out Cap Hill. Definitely check out Ballard for sure. Ballard has some great
Mhm.
bars. Definitely check out Belltown for sure. You want to check out those
Yeah.
Central District as well. You want to check out different neighborhoods because the pockets comes with different vibes, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
You're gonna see a vibe from all over the place.
Yeah.
U District is crazy. I just went to U District on Saturday for the first time in like months, probably a year. Um, that's a whole different vibe itself. Fremont, that's another different vibe. So I would
Mhm.
definitely encourage, even though you're doing a waterfront, start there. Definitely take a trip to the different neighborhoods, and check out their vibe and check out the pockets.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's kind of crazy to think about too. Even if you do travel to a new place and experience a different culture, there's so many cultures within that culture that are
Yeah,
different from each other. So
yeah.
kind of getting around to each part of town, you're gonna see something different.
It amazes me every day, man. Like, Cap Hill, it's definitely a free spirited liberal type of vibe, and that's Seattle in general. But
Mhm.
when you go towards like your Fremont, when you go towards like your Ballards, completely different. Completely different front in case of like, okay, this is more or less like restaurants that are well lit, restaurants that are have a lot of like high end finer foods, like, but it's still a good time. Um,
Yeah,
so it amazes me every time when I go from different pocket to pocket.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So remind me, what brought you out to Seattle originally?
Work, work brought me out to
Work.
Seattle.
Okay.
Most like everybody in the city,
Yeah.
in this goddamn city. But nah, it definitely work got me out here as a transplant. Um, and it was one of those things where it's like it's make it or break it. And
Mhm.
with that being said, I was able to meet people outside of my job. the crew that I started off with from Microsoft, I was able to go to different house parties and meet people from like Disney, Amazon,
Hmm.
um, I'm trying to think, Zulily. Like, there's so many companies out here I was able to meet people from, and it was just pretty interesting to hear about their work day and what's going on. So that was very, I would say like that was like actually one of the best things about moving out here was seeing and and talking to people from different companies, bigger companies, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. I know there's so much of those big tech companies that are out here now, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously Amazon and Microsoft were started here, and you got
Mm-hmm.
Starbucks as well. So
Starbucks, that's another one, another person that I probably talked to and chop it up with at a house party. Like, man, it was nuts. Like, I made so much connections, and that's one of the underrated thing about moving out here is the connections I've
mm.
made. Like, my LinkedIn is popping. I met a lot of recruiters. I've met a lot of like top level people, and I've met a lot of
Yeah.
people around my realm. So it's crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
If you could go back to that time when you got this offer to move out here, is there anything that you would do differently or anything you wish you would have done?
Oh man, save my money. I spent so much money on alcohol when I first moved out here.
Yeah.
No, I mean on a serious note though, for sure, I definitely would have taken a different approach. Like when I first moved out to Seattle, I definitely did it on a bougie note.
Mhm.
This was one of the first times out of college I was getting paid. Like before that, I was making like 13.50 an hour, and then when I moved out here, my salary has like quadrupled.
Yeah.
And coming from where I came from, it was like I have to do this. But I'll definitely
Mhm.
take a different approach in terms of like just living a little bit more comfortably, more of a humble approach than
Mhm.
anything. And I probably would have actually moved to Ballard. Actually, it's funny. I would have definitely moved to Ballard or somewhere that was a little bit more neighborhoodish, if that makes
Okay.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe a little less of the like downtown city vibe and
Yeah.
more of a neighborhood.
Yeah, I can be saying that now to be fair because I'm kind of over it, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. So I'll take that with a grain of salt. Um, but I definitely right now I'll probably say like I definitely start off in more of a neighborhood, small pocket vibe, make some friends, and then kind of expand my realm to the downtown area, if that makes sense. Do it backwards than what I
Yeah.
do it now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Hmm.
Um, so Phoenix, it sounds like is your next move. Is there anywhere
Dude,
else
it
that
has to be.
really interests you?
I mean, anywhere that's hot, man. I'm tired of this rain. I'm tired of all this snow. I mean, I say good things about the snow back home in Boston, but man, I'm a sun boy, and like, I'd say Texas was actually another place on my list.
Mhm.
Houston specifically. Houston was a great city when I went. It was under construction when I went, unfortunately, but it looked like it had a lot of potential. And I've talked to people who actually live in Houston now, and they love it.
Yeah.
I usually base a city based on the people who are from there or who live there, like the pride that
Mhm.
they take in their city. Like with Boston, again, go to anyone from Boston, they're like, man, this is my city. This is
Yeah.
me. And then like I've talked to people from Houston, they kind of have that same vibe. Even in like the rap culture, I listen to a lot of rap. So you can kind of when I kind of hear that from different people, those are the places I want to live to. So definitely
Mhm.
Houston's second on my list. But Phoenix is definitely top most, the first. San Diego is kind of on the third, but man, those California taxes, man, I don't know if I want to pay all that.
It's
And it's
rough.
about to be an island itself.
Yeah. Yeah. I gotta say, I love San Diego. Great city. Um, yeah, it's expensive and it's tough to live there if you're not making good money, in my
Right,
opinion.
right.
But yeah, that's even coming from like Washington State where we're at,
Hmm.
down to San Diego, completely different culture, completely different vibe.
Super,
Um,
man.
I mean, if you want to meet happy people that are laid back and relaxed,
Super.
go there.
For sure. I mean, I can't even touch upon like San Diego. Sorry to interrupt and sorry to kind of go off to a different tangent, but if you haven't been to San Diego, visit San Diego. San Diego
Yes.
is a gem. Like Phoenix is a gem as well, but San Diego, no one talks about it. Like it is a
Hmm.
gem of itself. You know, you can either go downtown and have yourself a night of your life, or you can even go outside of downtown to like Ocean Beach or Mission. I think it's
Yeah.
Mission Beach. I forgot. Like no
Hmm.
matter where you are in San Diego, you're gonna have a blast. I went there July 4th last year. I went
Oh
to a
yeah.
couple of house parties. Oh my dude, it's the people there were so nice. Shout out to my friend Carlos. Actually, he introduced me to a couple of people down there. But it's amazing. And then the first time I went to San Diego was in 2018, I believe. I stayed more downtown versus last year. I was more in the outskirts, and even downtown, I had fun. Like there, no
Hmm.
matter what you do, but it's again, like you said, it is expensive as hell.
Yeah. Yeah. Not only the housing, but the taxes and
The
everything else
taxes.
on top of it. Um, yeah. Well, that's cool. I totally recommend San Diego to everyone. Like, definitely fun to experience. And like we were talking about, once you're there, there's a lot of different places that have different vibes, different
Yep,
cultures to them. And so you
yep.
want to kind of get around and experience all the different vibes there.
Yep, most definitely. If I can remember, like you have like your Gaslands. Again, you
Hmm.
have like your Ocean Beach. You have your Pacific Beach. Pacific Beach is more or less like that surfer, yo, what's up, bro, type of
Yeah,
vibe.
for
Cause
sure.
and there's also the colleges out there too. So like you have
Hmm.
there's a lot of beautiful people down there. So you kind of have like
Yeah.
different vibes versus downtown and like on a beach. But no matter where you go, man, like it's the people there are nice. It's just an overall lovely city, no matter what. Super low key. Super
Yeah,
low
for
key.
sure. For sure. Nice relaxing weekend down there.
Right.
You'll come back happier, especially if you're going in the wintertime.
You'll come back happier. You would want to definitely work harder because you kind of want to probably move there after being there.
Oh
So
yeah.
you're like, God damn, man, I got to move to this place. I got to work twice as hard.
Yep, that's for sure. I know that's kind of I wouldn't say necessarily a goal, but an idea of mine. Maybe at some point in the future I'll do that, but I would love to move down there, or at least have some sort of like rental place down there that I
Yep.
could go visit. So I love that city, and I'm totally partial to it.
Yeah, it's I have my girlfriend's friend is planning on moving down there, and I'm actually really jealous because it's like one of those places where, I feel like you can live your life. You can like start something and you can like work twice as hard because the sun's out more or less.
Mhm.
But it's just like when you look around what San Diego has to offer, you want to be someone. You want to do what you want to do,
Yeah.
and live your life at the same time. You don't want to be a bum. You don't want to necessarily just skip life. Like that place is very inspiring.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. But hey, it's always nice to know someone in those cities that you can go visit too.
Man, my homie Carlos, shout out to Carlos again, man. Like I just pull up, I'm like, yo, Los, I'm about to be down there for a weekend. Oh, you
Yeah,
off the couch, and I'm there, man. It's
yeah.
yes, have friends. This is another thing too. Have friends in different places. When I went to
Hmm.
Seattle, I made it a point to my friends, like, man, the door is open. To the fact where I was actually traveling and I gave my friends like the key code to come into my apartment, and I met them in my apartment, man. Like I was like, because these are those are my homies for life. I know them since high school, 10, 10, 15 years, whatever the case may be. So
Hmm.
I had that trust with them. But either way, I told all my friends, like, listen, I am here. Like, I may have to work or whatever the case may be, but you have a place to stay in Seattle. Come check it out. No
Hmm.
matter what it is, I might be able to chop it up with you for a couple nights. I got to work there and do it my own thing. But just know I'm here and you can do whatever you want, man. Like, have friends in places. It's
Yeah,
key. It's key.
yeah, for sure. I love that. That's so awesome. I think that's what traveling does to you. It makes you more
Yeah.
open-minded and more kind of appreciative, and you want people to see what you're seeing too.
Yeah. It's funny because a lot of my friends that did visit, they actually considered moving here or they liked it a lot. And I'm just
Mhm.
like, wow, like cuz it's so different than Boston, man. Like
Yeah.
it's very Boston is liberal, but Seattle is like liberal. Like it's crazy and like, um they see the difference right off the bat. As soon as they land, they probably see the difference. And they're like, "Man, this is crazy. Like I can be whatever I want to be out here, do whatever I want." you know
Hmm.
versus Boston, you're like again, you're always caught up in that grind. You can have fun,
Yeah.
whatever the case may be, but Seattle just offers a different type of, like you said, a laid back chillness. There's people playing bike polo or whatever the case may be. Like there's so many sorts of things that's happening out here that people don't even know about back in Boston.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Well, I know we're kind of coming up on an hour here. I wanted to, and you don't have to go into too many details
Oh,
into
good.
this, but you mentioned that your mom immigrated from Barbados, was it?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Has she told you what that was like? Maybe she doesn't want you sharing on here, but
No,
um,
good.
kind of told you like what it was like, coming to America and to Boston, and just kind of talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is that in Boston, there's a whole community, a Bajan community. That's like if you when people talk about Rihanna, she's not Barbadian, she's Bajan. People get that confused. However, there's a whole Bajan community, right, that I grew up upon. It takes a village to raise a seed. And the funny
Mhm.
thing about it is that when my mom migrated here, literally all her friends from Barbados migrated here too. It's
Oh
crazy.
wow.
It's so crazy. And like the community that we have is that, you have your person, a mechanic, you have a person who's like a tailor, you have your cooks, you have this, you have that. Like everyone has their tip of the trade and people share amongst, like, hey, like I'll do this for you if you give me this or whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
So I would say like, my mom experienced moving to America was probably seamless, but at the same time different because obviously Barbados was colonized by the British, so we kind of have like a
Mhm.
lot of the British ways, and the British ways are like more or less like more nice, more friendly. Whereas in America, it's not the same way. It's not the same
Yeah.
way. Like, a couple of times, like if I invited my friends over and they don't take their shoes off, my mom's like, "What the hell's wrong with these people?" So it was seamless because again, literally a lot of her friends also did migrate to America, to Boston, but different
Hmm.
because the manners and the mannerisms and different like that was completely different. America versus the
Yeah.
British.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I know everything that we've been talking about with going to different cities in the U.S. In the different cultures. I think it's kind of like a tenfold type of thing once you go out of the country. You're gonna get something even more different in Barbados or France or wherever it is you're
Yep.
going.
Yep.
Um, Things are going to be even more different. So, um,
Last thing to add, traveling to
yeah.
France has humbled me. I've traveled to France by myself, and that has humbled me as an American. And this is myself. This is probably just me because I was ignorant to the point. But I didn't learn French. I just thought like I can go to Paris and just be who I am, an American. They should know
Yeah.
like English, and that sounds super ignorant. But traveling to Paris has humbled me a lot. So now when I do travel elsewhere outside the country, I am definitely honing in on their language. I'm definitely honing in on
Mhm.
their customs and different things of that nature. So just to point that out there, like it might just be me, but definitely before you travel anywhere, understand the customs and the language and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that's a great thing to point out. I think having talked with a lot of people around the world,
Yeah,
that's one of the major reasons why a lot of people don't like Americans because we
yeah,
are kind of ignorant. We are kind of, I would say snobbish
self-absorbed. Yeah,
and expecting everyone to, to know English and kind of take us above everyone else. But
yep.
Um, I've also found too that, like you said, if you try to learn the customs, the language, that sort of thing,
Hmm.
like they really appreciate that. And
Yeah,
you're probably going to get a much better experience in whatever place you're in if you try to just try to learn a little bit about their culture.
way better, man. I didn't have the best experience when I went, but obviously it was my fault and it was my self ignorance.
Yeah. Well, I will also say that, Paris especially has a stigma of being a little bit more rude to Americans.
Hmm.
But, I think there's give and take on both sides, I guess.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, no, that's a great thing to point out for sure. Um, so I guess one last couple things here. Any other trips coming up in the near future for you?
Oh man, that's a great question. And you know, the funny thing, what I try to do is I always try to keep a trip on a calendar, no matter if it's like
I
3, 4,
like
5,
that.
6 months out. You know, because what that does is that it keeps me honest to work hard. And it's
Yeah,
one of those things where like, why are we working just to work? Like, why are we not using our money to enjoy it? You know.
exactly.
So it's funny you mentioned that. I do not have any trips actually on the board.
All right. Gotta get on
Tentatively,
that.
yeah, I know. Tentatively, my girlfriend, we're looking to go to Vegas for her birthday. I've been to Vegas already, but we're looking to go. But I mean, nothing planned right now. I mean, I would definitely want to travel internationally.
Mhm.
That's something that I definitely want to put on my chips in because I traveled actually a year ago today. I was in Tulum, and
Oh,
Tulum. If Kyle invites me again, ladies and gentlemen, I can talk about all that experience. That was probably one of the best trips I've been on. So I definitely have to bug again to travel internationally, um, just to see different sites and different experiences.
yeah. Where's the first place you would go?
Man, I want to go back to Amsterdam, for sure. But I do want to expand out of Europe. I definitely do want to do Latin America.
Hmm.
Um, but Amsterdam was it's by far one of the most beautiful places I've been to. Like everyone there
Yeah.
was just so nice. The food was so great, and comparing like when you go to Europe or somewhere like Amsterdam versus America, it's like, man, why do I don't know? I'm about to lose my passport on purpose. Like, you're like, man, forget this, bro. Like I am about to change. I'm about to lose my passport. Like for real, for real. It's crazy.
Yeah. There's so much beauty out there. So many cool things to see. Um, I mean, it's hard to stay in one place.
It is. It is. And you know, again, like we were put on this earth, and but why are we saying like why are we saying just move around. Just why are we
Mhm.
saying solid? Like, just move around. Do you see different things? Like, I was also always had this thought in my mind. Like, I'd be damned for me not to touch a couple countries. Like, like
Mhm.
there's so many things to see. There's so many people to talk to. There's so many things to eat. Like, no matter where I've traveled to, of the people I talk to, I'm learning or seeing a different perspective every day. Like, it's
Mhm.
just crazy for you to just be in your bubble. I mean, I am a homebody.
Yeah.
I love to be in my bubble in a way. Also understand that there's just the world is bigger than me. Like there's just so
Mhm.
much to see and there's so much to do.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's one of my passions and part of the reason why I started this podcast is I want people to see that there's more out there than just
Yeah.
their bubble. I remember a couple years ago hearing a statistic, and I think it's still pretty much true, but it's something like 50% of people will never leave a 50-mile radius of where they were born in the U.S.,
Wow.
which is
Dude, that's
insane.
yeah.
I mean,
Wow.
we're missing out on so much, and I think it kind of also stokes the ignorant American um, persona, I guess,
Yeah.
because they don't know what's out
Right.
there, or what life could be like.
Right. Right. And like I said, it took me to travel to Paris to like humble myself and to like, to go places with more of like I'm at their territory rather than like I'm American. Like
Yeah.
if I didn't travel, I would never know that. Like I would always think like America's on top. It's ignorant to say. It's very like, like damn, this guy like but that's just the reality of it. And that's what we all see throughout the day. And that's what's pushes to us that America is the leading country and this, that. But where in reality, when you go to different places, even in Europe, from my understanding, Amsterdam, like people are happy. People
Mhm.
are happy, man. Like it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I actually on that topic, I don't think we're even close to being number one for happiest people.
It's
Um, I
it
think we're like close to like 60th or something like that.
and I can see why. I can definitely see why. We wake up and we slave our butts off every day, and to do
Mhm.
things we like, to do things we don't like, just to have like, like I'm not too sure like how other governments do it, but just to have a lot of that chunk taken out and like not seeing our return, our tax spend, like it our country's always in turmoil, whether it's,
Yeah.
red versus orange, or you know what I'm saying? Like we go other places, they know so much about the history and about themselves. People are so cool there. Like I've been to Germany, and like there's so many different friendly faces. I'm African. I'm black in a way, but in Europe I had no problems more or less. Because everyone's so friendly to me. It's so crazy. Whereas here in America, it's kind of like, oh shit, can I go to this place or can I not go to this place? Like
Yeah.
man, it's nuts. It's so nuts.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, and I think again, if we got to see more of just what's outside of our bubble, I think
Right.
a lot of those barriers, a lot of those bad things would kind of melt away because we'd come back with this different perspective.
Yep. And you get to tell all your friends. That's more
Mhm.
important. Each one teach one. A lot of my friends obviously didn't travel outside the country. Some of my friends did, some of my friends didn't. But I'm able to tell my friends what I've saw and like, how they approach different things. And they're like, oh man, that's so cool. And like, they end up, going in the grind a lot harder because they want to go
Mhm.
visit, because they don't know
Yeah.
what they don't know. They just think, like you said, with that going back to that whole stat, that 50% of people don't leave that 50-mile radius because they're so
Mhm.
comfortable because they don't have anyone telling them, like, listen, man, this is what I saw or this is what I've done.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh crap, that's for real. And little be known, they're out there chopping it up,
Mhm.
doing it all.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, well, we'll kind of wrap it up here. Last thing I have for you. How much do you like the Red Sox and how much do you hate the Yankees?
I don't want your podcast to get banned.
Yeah.
Nah, man, Red Sox all day, man. The Yankee, it's been, man. I can go into this. Red Sox all day, baby. Red Sox all day. And if you know the Kenmore Square, if you know, you know.
That's funny. Yeah, that's one of the things as a baseball fan I took away from being in Boston was they're so proud of the Red Sox and so into the Red Sox
Mm-hmm.
and the rivalry between the Yankees and the Red Sox is so huge and unfortunately we don't have that as much out here in Seattle. I wish we would have more of it, but it's really fun to see that kind of difference in culture too.
I'll leave you guys on this last note. If you go to Boston, go to a Red Sox game. And the crazy thing about it, when I first went to a Mariners game, everyone went to a Mariners game to get drunk. No one's watching the game. When you go to Fenway, people are best people like, yo, sit your butt down. People are glued to their seats watching that game, singing "Sweet Caroline" during the
Yeah.
seventh inning break. Like it is game face on. It's
Uh-huh.
crazy, man. It's completely crazy. Versus here, at T-Mobile Park nowadays, people just go to the beer garden just to have a good time to get drunk. Not saying people don't get drunk in
Mhm.
Fenway. Trust me, Boston's known for people getting drunk, but it's night. People are focused, laser
Yeah.
mind focused.
Yeah, for sure. I 100% agree with that. It's much more important to them than it is out here.
We win, baby. That's all we do.
And Fenway Park is one of the most iconic stadiums out there. It's pretty
Mm-hmm.
incredible to see.
Mm-hmm.
um, well, Jamal, thanks for taking the time today. Really appreciate you sharing your experiences.
My pleasure.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to get you back on to talk about your experience in Tulum. I'd love to hear about that since I haven't been there, but yeah, we'll have to do that another time. But any last recommendations, advice for the listeners?
Um, if I'm invited back on, I definitely want to touch upon solo traveling. If you haven't traveled solo, travel solo. That's the last thing I'm gonna leave on. Go ahead, make that trip. If you have a trip in your mind, you're like, oh, I don't know if my friend's gonna join me or I'm gonna be by myself. Nah, screw all that noise. Go, do it, do it.
Agreed. Yeah, well, we'll definitely talk about that as well. But anyways, yeah, thanks again, Jamal. I appreciate you taking the time to do this, and I really enjoyed our conversation and learn a little bit more.
Likewise.
Yeah, learn about your experiences. So, um, anyways, we'll wrap this up here. Thanks again for everyone listening, for taking the time to listen to. But Jamal, have a great evening and some
Thank you,
great
sir. You too.
travels, and we'll talk again soon.
For sure. We'll keep in touch. Thank you all.
Sounds good, man. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Hey everybody, Kyle here. If you enjoyed today's show and want more, you can always listen to other episodes on Spotify or Anchor. The links are in the description below. If you want to see travel pictures from today's guest and other guests, as well as my own travel photos, you can see them on Instagram. The page is called Our Travel Experiences Podcast. If you want to share your own travel pictures on the page and or share your travel experiences on the podcast, you can message me on that Instagram page or email me at ourtravelexperiences@outlook.com. I would love to hear about your travel experiences and see all the beautiful pictures that you've taken. Thanks again for listening, everyone, and I look forward to sharing the world with you again soon.